Tonight, a father grieves the death of his 15-year-old son, shot and killed in Scarborough yesterday.
He said, okay, let's go with us to hospital. So what's going on? He said, shot your son.
Police try to figure out if the teenager was targeted or hit by a bullet meant for someone else. Plus,
it is unusual. 7 out of 10 cases don't make it through their first parole hearing.
the former Toronto cop who shot and killed a teenager on a streetcar is granted full parole. And Masai Ujiri gives a special thanks to the women who helped his Raptors win the NBA championship. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Police have a 15-year-old under arrest tonight, charged with the murder of another 15-year-old. Safiola Kozerwe was shot to death yesterday afternoon near Markham and Ellesmere, not far from Woburn High School, where both of the teens were students. Our Greg Ross spoke with the young victim's father today.
Very hard, I told you, very hard. Very hard to hold, very hard.
Abdullah Khosrari had a hard time finding the words to describe how he's feeling just a day after learning his son, Safiola Khosrari, was gunned down while walking home from school Monday afternoon.
Never expect to be happening like that, especially for around the kids' school coming out.
He says his son was a quiet teenager who stayed out of trouble. He says he was a good student who loved to play soccer and go swimming at the local community center. Not the type of kid you would expect to be involved with something like this.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe it that Mom, from up to now, couldn't let us to an hospital to see at least the kids.
Police say at this point it's too early to say if this was a targeted shooting or if Khosrari was an innocent bystander in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Nothing in the victim's background or who he is indicates as to why this occurred to him. However, we have still a lot more evidence to go through, a lot more witnesses to speak to.
Khosrari had never been in trouble with police, but they say the suspect, who can't be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, is known to them.
We have identified with the accused some gang ties. It is unclear if that has played into this incident.
Khosrari's family is searching for answers. His father says they are completely devastated by this. He says the worst part is not only were they unable to be by his side in his final moments, they weren't even allowed to see his body.
We went to the hospital, couldn't show us. That was hurt very hard. It very hurt us. Up to now, we didn't see my kids.
Coincidentally, this shooting happened one day before a pre-planned community town hall hosted by the Toronto Police Guns and Gangs Unit here at the Heron Park Community Centre in Scarborough. Now, police are asking anyone with information about this shooting to come forward, particularly any students who may have cell phone video of the incident. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The former Toronto police officer who shot and killed Sammy Yatim on a streetcar is now out on full parole. James Forcillo served about 1/3 of his more than 6-year sentence. Lorenda Redekop looks at the reasons for the parole board's decision.
James Forcillo is out on full parole, 2 years and 2 months after his sentence began. He's already been out on day parole for 6 months. The case made news across the country. 18-year-old Sammy Yatim armed with a knife on a streetcar, empty by the time officers pointed their guns. Forcillo fires 2 separate volleys of shots. He was found guilty of attempted murder in connection to the second round of shots. The parole board decision says Forcillo has attended psychological counseling and is at a low risk to reoffend. In the decision, the parole board writes, "You have provided a viable plan for full parole, have strong community and family support, have been engaged in your correctional plan, and have transitioned well to the community. As a result, it calls Forcillo's risk manageable."
It is unusual. 7 out of 10 cases don't make it through their first parole hearing.
This criminologist was surprised by the decision, but also understands it.
If you look at the case that's been put forward, if you look at some of the statements that have been released in the media about how Forcillo has been behaving in prison, it seems like that maybe he is the ideal prisoner and has shown that he is capable of release.
Sammy Yatim's mother spoke 4 years ago, after Forcillo's conviction.
We lost him forever. Nothing in this world will compensate me for my loss of my son.
The parole board says it considered victim impact statements by Sami Yatim's family in this decision. It refers to him as a loving son, protective older brother, and much loved member of his community. It says the Yatim family continues to suffer, and one condition of Fursilo's release is no contact with them to prevent any further trauma. In the area where the shooting happened, people are frustrated.
To abuse your power like that, I'm sorry, he did not deserve full parole.
I think it's wrong. I think he should have served his full sentence.
There's lots of examples in the world where police officers and law enforcement are able to control situations without firing their weapons.
Fursilo is also under a lifetime weapons ban. The parole board says he's attending college and plans to become an electrician. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Catholic schools across the province were closed today, as well as some public high schools and elementary schools in several wards, all as the labor dispute between teacher unions in the province rolls on.
In the first year of these cuts, my entire drama program reduced to one section. I was surprised by how swiftly the cuts impacted programs like my own.
All three unions say they are frustrated with the lack of progress in contract negotiations with the provincial government. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of elementary school students won't be getting their report cards next month. Both the Toronto and Peel district school boards announced today it's just not possible to produce accurate report cards at this time as teachers participate in an ongoing Work to Rule campaign. As for the rest of the week, elementary teachers in London will hit the picket lines tomorrow, with Halton and Niagara boards joining in on Thursday. And police in Halton are investigating after a body was found encased in ice in a creek in Burlington. Halton police confirming tonight it was a 22-year-old woman from Burlington. She had been missing since Sunday. Police say her death does not appear suspicious. The ice and cold made recovery effort difficult and involved the help of Burlington firefighters. The investigation is now with the coroner. And a 26-year-old woman died early this morning after being hit by a tractor trailer near Dufferin and Steeles.
Got sort of a woman that was obviously on foot walking and crossing the street in some fashion. We don't have all those details just yet. But during the turning motion of this commercial truck, she was struck by that vehicle and succumbed to injuries.
And that truck didn't stop after hitting the woman, but police say they've now located the driver, and that person is now cooperating with officers. The collision took place around 7 this morning. The woman is the second pedestrian fatality in Toronto this year. And there was a close call aboard a GO bus this morning. Metrolink says a thick chunk of ice flew off a transport truck and smashed into the front windshield on the 401 near Meadowvale. There were passengers on the double-decker bus at the time, but incredibly, no one was injured and the driver was able to pull over safely. Well, the Raptors were off tonight, but the team's president put on a full-court press, speaking as a special guest at a Women in Sports event tonight. Masai Ujiri telling the crowd that the reigning NBA champions owe much of that title to their female colleagues who helped them get there. Angelina King has more.
Is there anybody in this world that did not come from a woman? Thank you.
Masai Ujiri's gratitude for women runs deep. He told a crowd that he's continually inspired by his female colleagues, his daughter, his wife, and his mother.
My mom affected me in every single way of life. She taught me to be competitive, fierce, loving, giving.
Ujiri facilitated a panel discussion with 3 of the 14 women who work for the Toronto Raptors.
Finding my voice, I think, started from an early age.
They shared insight into diversity in sports and what the team needs to do to win another championship. Ujiri told the crowd how integral the women are when it comes to the success of the team and shared stories about how instrumental they were in major decision-making that ultimately led to a winning season.
They were not hired because we wanted to hire women. They were hired because they're the best at what they do, men included, and we're proud of that. And by the way, if you want to question it, we won a championship and they were part of that.
It was all part of the one-year anniversary celebration of Toronto's Women in Sports and Events chapter. Also known as WISE, the nonprofit is a resource for women working in sports.
For women to come together and to share and create this community and to work together and really provide each other the same sense of sisterhood that maybe men have done together for so long.
The women on stage shared the same goals for the industry as those in the crowd.
Eventually, conversations like this aren't needed, and that it's the norm to have female successful business leaders to look up to every day.
And Ujiri shared some of his own hopes.
One day, there's another African general manager in the NBA, and there's a woman general manager in the NBA. We have to reach that.
And a room full of women are ready to make that happen. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy joins us with her first look at the forecast. We got a midweek warm-up.
Yeah, aren't we in for a bit of a treat, Mike? That's exactly what we're seeing. Temperatures kind of in this past 24 hours getting back to seasonal, but they're going ahead of the game as we move forward towards the middle of the week. So that temperature trend definitely mild. Hump day, our Wednesday, we actually get some sunshine along with a milder temperature. Probably some clouds coming in the latter part of the day, but still it's going to be a nice one. Now, the weekend, it looks like we continue with this trend of active weather coming every weekend. We've been seeing it. This will be the third one in a row. Looks like it may be a bit of a mix. I'll get into that more a little later in the show. I just want to show you that as we go through the overnight, the winds lighten up a bit, but then get stronger from the southwest through the day on Wednesday. So it will be a little bit breezy at times. Eventually, they'll turn more towards the west, and that's going to allow a bit more of that cloud cover to come in as that high pressure finally moves off. But overnight tonight, -7, feeling like -14. 1 degree tomorrow with some sunshine, Mike.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
In a proposed change that is raising some eyebrows, the Ontario government is considering allowing developers to hire their own building inspectors. It's part of the province's attempt to streamline the permit system, but as John Lancaster tells us, some feel the move could end up hurting buyers.
Toronto's landscape is ever evolving with new condos and high-rises going up constantly. And the way these buildings are inspected to ensure they meet code may also evolve. Essentially, the Ford government is considering letting developers hire their own building inspectors to police their work. The development industry is on board with the idea.
We're struggling to get inspections done in a timely way. And when those delays happen, it backs up the entire project. So, the idea here is to get people to their homes sooner and safer. This is a concept that, with provincial support, can make that happen in a way that helps everyone in the process.
City officials say, as it stands, the vast majority of building inspections are done within 48 hours of a developer's request. Will Johnston says the potential change could lead to potential conflicts of interest.
Independence is important to Toronto building is because when you have an independent process where you have independent oversight of the building regulatory process, what the public can have is trust and confidence in that the buildings that they live in, they work in, that they visit are safe.
The province is looking into sending architects and engineers back to school to obtain additional certification to what building inspectors do. They would then be allowed to sign off on inspectors' reports for developers. The Ontario Association of Architects says that proposal will mean consumers would pay more in building costs.
Well, a developer may pay to hire a certified professional. That fee, that payment is ultimately going to be flowed through to either the homeowner or the business owner who's going to occupy that space.
The province says it hasn't made a decision when or if the proposed changes will come into effect. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Mississauga's population is expected to double by 2021, and now a developer is trying to transform this whole area into a new downtown for the city, with Square One Mall at the heart of it. I'm Lauren Pelly, and I'll have more on that massive project coming up.
A big endorsement today for Toronto's 2 safe injection sites. A new report confirms they're working.
These services are having a positive impact on their clients and making a difference. They are saving lives. We need to be using this kind of evidence to help bolster our response.
The report showed that the sites are reducing overdose-related harm because staff are available to immediately respond when overdoses happen. It also found that the sites increased safer drug use and helped clients connect with health and social services. Well, there's a new plan tonight that could transform the heart of Mississauga. It's a massive development that would include dozens of high-rise towers. The decades-long project would create a whole new city centre. As Lauren Pelly reports, it's prompting both excitement and concern.
Mississauga's city centre is already a bustling place, and it's about to get even bigger.
As one of the largest development projects in Canadian history, the Square One district is unparalleled in its scale and ambition.
Anchored by Square One Shopping Centre, the new community will feature 37 high-rise towers with condos, offices, retail, and green spaces.
The multi-billion-dollar investment and goal is to create a true downtown for Mississauga.
The 18,000 residential units are set to house 35,000 residents, all right near the upcoming Hurontario LRT transit line. So why such a massive development? Well, it's because Mississauga's population is expected to explode. It's already the 6th largest city in Canada, and in the next couple of decades, close to 1 million people could be living here. That's prompting questions about how to keep the growing city affordable. The developer says more supply will help, with over half the new units slated for rental apartments. But there's no guarantee any will have lower than average monthly rent.
So this will be negotiated with the city. We are very adamant that all new developments will have a component of affordability in them.
Mississauga's mayor also wants to make sure there's ample park space and amenities like schools.
I think this is a transformative project for Mississauga.
Residents aren't so sure.
I think it's exciting. I mean, personally, I own a place close by, so I know the value's going to go up, but it's also a little bit scary because I know how congested and busy it's going to be around here.
They have to manage. If population become double, they have to manage their transportation, especially their living areas.
We've got such a big country and everybody's living in the same box. We should be developing the country and spreading the people out.
Like it or not, the first phase of Mississauga's massive new neighborhood is breaking ground this summer, and construction could continue for decades to come. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Mississauga.
Well, coming up, from a dogfighting ring to canine detective, how this Ontario pup made history after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
A pit bull who was rescued from a dogfighting ring in Ontario is now making history in New Jersey. I want you to meet Hansel. In 2015, he was rescued from a dogfighting ring near Chatham. He was just 7 weeks old. 30 other pit bulls were also rescued during the raid. Now, 2 years after they were seized, some of the pups were shipped to a rehab center in the U.S., including Hansel. Now, he is the first pit bull in the Garden State and the U.S. to become a canine arson detective.
When I first got a picture of Hansel, I was like, can pit bulls really do this? In the instance where the scene is safe, I'll determine where the point of origin is, and then I'll dig out that area, and then Hansel's gonna come in and sniff out the area that I've dug out. And if he sits, then I'll take evidence, and if he doesn't sit, then it's a good, most likely was not an intentionally set fire.
Now, Hansel went through 15 weeks of training to prepare to work with the Millville Fire Department. He performs critical tasks to help with arson investigations, such as detecting traces of gas and sniffing out 14 different ignitable odors. Colette Kennedy's back with her extended forecast, and it's going to be nice to see some weather graphics where the numbers don't have minus signs in front of them.
Yeah, it is going to be nice, and we're going to be able to get used to it for a little bit, Mike, as we go forward over the next several days. At least for the daytime highs, we're going to be finding those temperatures just a little bit, a tiny bit, but above the freezing mark. Our average high, though, at this time of year is below it. It's at minus 2.4, and our low around minus 11. Well, today's unofficial high, you can see kind of close on these numbers. We kind of made that way, our way climb back up towards seasonal, and now we're moving to going on the warmer side of things. So high pressure moving in place, seeing some of the clouds receding that we had earlier today and into tomorrow morning. It does set us up for sunshine, but the winds are going to pick up a little bit and be somewhat gusty at times from the southwest. That's helping our temperature, but it also, depending if you're in the shade or something, it can make it feel a little bit cooler as well. By tomorrow evening, we're seeing some of that light snow well to the north of us, but just pushing in as that next system, quite broad, is getting closer. We do get the cloud cover from this into Thursday. We're going to have grayer skies towards Friday as well, and then the next weather system coming in for the weekend. Now, those wind gusts I were mentioning, you can see at times we may be not only exceeding 40, but potentially, especially around southern parts of the Golden Horseshoe, potentially exceeding 50 kilometers an hour. You have that risk, too, for tomorrow in southwestern Ontario, but tonight it's minus 7, feeling like minus 14. Temperatures tomorrow climbing up to the freezing mark with that wind coming from the southwest helping you out there. Into the GTA, minus 6 to minus 8, the range we're seeing for our overnight lows. So a little cool to get things going tomorrow with the sun into the afternoon. 0 for Markham, but just above freezing everywhere else throughout the GTA, with that temperature going up to a daytime high of about 1 degree. Now, here's where things get a little interesting as we go towards the weekend. So you can see that the temperatures stay above seasonal and stay above freezing for the daytime highs. But as this next system comes in, the overnight lows closer to the freezing mark, it does look like we're going to be seeing perhaps a mix of some wet snow and some rain and maybe even a little bit of sleet pushing in there as well. So Saturday not looking like the best travel day. As it gets closer, we'll have a better idea, Mike, on any accumulations here, but that is definitely something to watch for coming again this weekend.
A nice stretch of temperatures in the on the positive side.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, when a snow shovel just isn't doing the job, why not use a blowtorch? A video circulating on social media shows this Markham man doing just that. He is seen using a long blowtorch connected to a can of propane in an attempt to thaw the snowbank on his driveway. Just don't try that if you're wearing one of these outfits. With the chance of more snow in the forecast this weekend, perhaps now is the time to get your unicorn costume ready for the snowblower. This is apparently a thing. We'll explain after the break. Want to brighten up a bleak winter storm? How about cleaning your snow dressed as a unicorn? Well, this all started out as a dare. Frank Emmanuel, who lives in Strathroy, just outside London, strutting his stuff as he clears the snow from his driveway. He was dared to do this by his husband after seeing it online, where apparently this is a thing. Started last month by a woman in New York, now being copied by people with snowblowers and other costumes. You know, perhaps the dinosaurs could have survived the Ice Age if they had one of these. And that's our newscast for tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. Good night.